Hi everyone, I'm Lori Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm here to tell you the story of how I figured out that my child was transgender and how I began the process of supporting him. So I'm really glad that you're here. So I wanted to just start by saying that he is my first child. So when he was born, doctors handed me this newborn baby. We thought that we had a little girl. And it was great. It was exciting. I was so happy to have this child. My husband and I were closer than ever. And it just felt really, really good. I wasn't a nervous mom for some reason. I think I had done so many babysitting jobs growing up. I had little brothers. I worked in a daycare with infants and toddlers. So I had this child and felt really just like things were perfect. Like I had everything I wanted. And he was a very easy, sweet baby. So we had these couple of years that were just very peaceful. And I'll just say, I'm interrupting myself. I'll do that a lot. But I am going to use he and I'm going to use his name because it feels more respectful at this point. So I know it might sound strange as I'm saying he, him, and the name Michael, but that's how I tell this story. I don't feel comfortable using the other pronouns and the dead name. So we had this baby, we had this great time, things were going really well. And one day I was giving him a bath and I was saying something, I was always talking to him about just anything, whatever we were doing. I was trying to help him develop language skills. He has really great verbal skills and always has. But I enjoyed just naming things and talking about things. If we were in the supermarket, I'd hand him a lemon and, this is yellow, this is bumpy, this is cold. And we would just talk. So I was talking about, daddy's a man and mommy is a woman and your cousin's a boy and this neighbor's a girl. And in that conversation, he said, Mommy, I'm a boy. And I said, oh no, sweetheart, you're a girl. And then we talked about anatomy and I said, that's why you're a girl. And he dropped it that day. And then like a day or two later, same thing in the bath. We're just talking. It's quiet. It's, this, I guess, like safe environment. We're having a nice time. And he again says, I'm a boy. And so now that he said it again, he obviously didn't forget about it. It was something that was still on his mind. I kind of had this voice in the back of my head that said, well, maybe he's transgender. Because I know that from watching, I think I had watched a documentary in high school about trans people, that some people know who they are at a very, very young age. This is a 2.5-year-old though. So I was like, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. So after he said it again, I went to my husband and I said, look, I think our kid is transgender. And my husband was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. Why would you say that? And I was like, well, he's saying he's a boy. Maybe he knows. And, we went through all the things that I think a lot of parents go through. Like, well, maybe he just really likes daddy and thinks daddy's cool. So he wants to be a boy like daddy. Or maybe he's a tomboy. We even said like, maybe he's gay, which at 2.5 years old, I don't think a child can make the connection necessarily between like sexuality and their gender. I don't know. But we were trying so hard to rationalize it away because the thought of having a trans kid is a scary thought. And so we kind of like, we didn't know what to do. So we did nothing. And time just went by and I kind of acknowledged in the conversations. And then there were other times when I said things that I deeply regret saying. Things such as, oh, be a girl. Girls are so much fun. Don't you want to be a girl like mommy? And then, boys are stinky. Be a girl. And then things got way worse as he got older. But the older he got, the more he kept insisting that he was a boy. And the more difficult it became for him to have long curly brown hair and for people to say, wow, you're so beautiful, you're so pretty. There were just all these little things that were happening that I think were so painful for him and really shaped him, because these are those developmental years, those extremely important years where a child is learning about their feelings, about themselves and about the world around them and about people and trust. And he kept telling me who he was and I kept kind of ignoring or doing nothing or changing the subject or even just saying something terrible to him. So I have deep regret from that time period. So maybe hearing this can help other parents if you're finding yourself in that same position, right? We think that it's a phase and we can just like talk them out of it, or we can just kind of wait and it'll go away. And I think for some children, maybe that's true. But when your child is really insistent over a long period of time, consistently telling you that this is who they are, and you can see it kind of in little ways, it's okay to believe your child. And we'll talk again about that. But back to my story with Michael. So he ended up, going into preschool, and we were fighting about clothing every single day before school. He just didn't want to wear anything that he had in his closet. And I was like, well, we went shopping together. Why don't you like any of these clothes? Well, it's because they were from the girls section and they were girly clothes. And I tried to buy like the tomboy stuff. I tried to buy a lot of like red and black and blue and gray, but they weren't the clothes that he felt comfortable in or the clothes that he wanted to wear. And again, time's just kind of passing, and he's getting quieter and quieter and sadder and sadder. And now he's in kindergarten, and, he stops looking in the mirror, and he just doesn't want to deal with who he is, I guess. And so he was developing some signs of anxiety. His pediatrician had us take him to a psychiatrist in the area. She met with my husband and I first. And in that meeting where we were talking about the anxiety and some of the stuff that was going on, I said, by the way, he keeps telling me that he's a boy. Maybe he's transgender. Could you help us figure that out? And so next session, she was just with him alone. And then a third session, she was with my husband and I again. And she said, oh, no, this is not a trans child. Trans children are very unhappy. They're very quiet. Your child came in and sat down and played with me and was very friendly and happy. So no, I don't think so. So now, my husband was like, this is crazy. No way. This doctor was like, no, I don't think so. No, or not even I don't think so. I think she was pretty sure that he was not trans. And I spoke to my mom, my family, my friends, and everybody said, like, this is kind of, this child is way too young to know that. How could a child know that? And so I kept listening to all of the people around me and not listening to the one person who knows himself and who's in that little body and in that little brain. And I hate that I did that. I hate that I listened to the people saying, he's too young, he can't know this. How could a child know? Just wait and see. Maybe they'll grow out of it. Maybe he's a tomboy. And so I started to feel like my child had walked out into the ocean and was getting knocked over by all these waves and was struggling to get the air that they needed to survive. And every time I started to run to get in the water, somebody would hold on to me and say, oh, just wait, they'll learn how to swim. He'll learn, he'll be fine. He's okay. And I just kept listening to that instead of getting in the water with my child and taking his hand and getting him to safety. So that was what it was like. That was what I experienced inside of my body. It was this feeling of fear of, why am I letting my kid do this alone or be alone? Why aren't I helping? And so, he was really well behaved in school, polite and sweet. I know, whenever we'd be out in public at all, he was so friendly and sweet and warm, but people would say, oh, you're so beautiful, you're such a pretty little girl, and I would just look over and his big brown eyes would just be so sad, and he would smile and say thank you and be polite, but I could see that he was just hurting so much. So at home, he said, can you call me Michael? And I said, sure. And he said, can you tell me I'm handsome? And I did, but it was only at home. And, sometimes we would be going somewhere and he'd be like, can you call me Michael? And I remember a few times saying, no, that'll confuse people because you look like a girl. And why would I call you Michael? And so again, I was telling him well, it's more important that other people are comfortable around us than what you need or what you feel. So, these are the things that were just so unfair to him, just so cruel, unintentionally cruel. Of course, I didn't mean to. I loved my child so much. If I could go back and redo all of these years, of course, I would do it so differently. So maybe, again, maybe just understand the regrets that I have. Because this is the thing, right? If your child isn't really trans, they think that they are, or it's a phase, or they change their feelings later on, it's okay if that happens. It's really not a big deal. I mean, he's been transitioning for 6 years, and if he told me tomorrow, like, this isn't really who I am, I would say, great, what do you need? I'm here for you. I love you. It doesn't matter, right? So if you do what I did and you don't support your child, trust me when I say that you're damaging your child. I know that I did. I wish that I didn't. But if you get on board and you say, what do you need, right? Sometimes your child just wants to go by a different name. That's not hurting them. That's not hurting anybody. That's not causing a problem. So if your child feels seen and heard and believed and listened to, and then they change, or that's not really who they are, or they're just trying it out, you are going to show them that you have their back and that you love them, right? So it doesn't even matter. He can detransition and I would be fine. If he's Michael forever, fine. We've talked about that. He knows that, right? Because what I've learned and what I can tell him now is that his gender is the least important thing about him. His heart and his soul and his mind, those are the things that matter. And so he deserves support and he deserves to be treated with respect and kindness, and I really made him feel invisible, and I was his biggest supporter, and we were so close. And if I'm the person that he trusts so much, and I'm the person that spent so much time with him, and I don't see him for who he is, and I don't respect who he is, like, how could he possibly ever trust anybody? And so I think that there's definitely a lasting impact of all of that. So just to kind of continue on the story, how did we change? We were having dinner one night. He's 5 years old, in kindergarten, and it was a normal night. We were having a nice time together. I do have a younger child, so he has a sister who's 3 years younger than him. So the four of us were having dinner together, and he just stood up from the table and he said, I hate myself and I want to kill myself. And I felt shocked. I don't know where he got that language from. We don't say things like that. So I didn't even know where it was coming from or how he knew those words. But he meant it in a way. And he just kind of stood there and told us, like, I'm done, right? I am not okay like this. And so, I'm not going to keep going this way. And so when he said it, it took my breath away. I was like, this feeling of shock washed over me to see my child say something like that. Not out of drama, not out of, I want what I want right now and you're not giving it to me and I'm angry. It was like, everything was peaceful and fine, except for what was going on inside of him, of course. And so I said, why are you saying that? Because I didn't know what to say. And he said, because I'm a girl and I don't want to live like this. I can't be a girl anymore. And so I stood up from the table and I hugged him tight and I just said, I am so sorry. I hear you. I'm going to figure out what to do. I'm not sure how to help you. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but I promise you that I'm going to figure it out. And I remember looking across the table at my husband and just knowing that he wouldn't be okay with the transition or moving forward in any way, because we had thought about it a lot and we had talked about it so many times over those years. And I knew how he felt. But in that moment, I decided that, it was time to stop listening to other people or even putting other people first. And it was time to put the child first. My son needed help. And that was the moment that changed everything. The next day, I was in touch with a friend who is a social worker, and I talked to her, and she was the first person, the only person who said, yeah, it sounds like your child is transgender. And when she said that, I started to cry. It was such a feeling of relief that somebody else saw that, somebody else recognized that. And so she put me in touch with a local organization. And my husband and I went to a parent support group, and that was when we sort of learned about what to do and how to transition. So I will definitely continue my story in a little bit. Again, this is my story, so I am talking about Michael, but I'm not telling Michael's story because I'm not Michael. So I'm just telling you what I saw and what I felt and what I experienced and how it appeared that he was feeling. But he is fully okay with me talking about this. I've asked him a bunch of times. I've told him that if at any point he's not okay sharing, then we'll stop. But he wants to share and he wants to talk about this because he knows that we can help other families, particularly other children who need support and need to transition. So I hope that my story has helped someone else feel a little bit less alone, or somebody who's going through it. Maybe have the courage to do what your child needs, because again, I promise you that when a child is this young, the only thing that you do in a transition is change their outer appearance. There are no hormones at that young of an age. There's definitely no surgery at that age. It's just letting your child dress how they want, using the name that they're more comfortable with. And just those kinds of outer things. We changed his room. We just, called him he and used the word boy instead of girl. And those were the changes. And you're not going to hurt a child by doing that. You're not doing anything permanent. It can be undone, but it's so much worse to not do anything than it is to take those steps and show your child that you see them and you love them for who they are. So stick around. I have so much more to say. Thank you so much for being here.